Hello and welcome back to the XTraw AI podcast, where the XTraws come together to decode the world of artificial intelligence across industries, policies, and technologies. This September has been a whirlwind for AI around the globe, and to capture its full scope, we're bringing you this news edition in two parts, recorded across continents. In part one, I'm your host, Raghu, joining in from India, alongside my fellow XTraws, Sesh from Seattle, Manjeet from the Bay Area, and our special guest, Anjali from Google, also joining us from Silicon Valley. Together, we'll break down the month's biggest headlines in infrastructure, compute, and product innovations. In part two, I continue from India with Lucas, our XTraw voice from Berlin, Germany. We'll explore the ethical red lines, global governance debates, and ecosystem partnerships shaping the AI landscape. So wherever you're tuning in from, Bay Area, Berlin, Bangalore, or beyond, settle in as the XTraws connect the dots on September 2025 AI news.
All right, welcome back to our monthly AI news roundup. And today we have an additional guest, Anjali, as well. Thank you all. So as always, we will be, today again, we'll be doing it in two parts since Lucas is traveling. He's on the European time zone and I'm in the Asia time zone. But we all of us are so enthusiastic about what is happening around the globe on the front of AI, and we try to bring in our perspectives about the news that is happening in the AI frame. As always, we focus on four different buckets, right? I think we start with the infrastructure investment bucket, and then we go into the product launches and innovations bucket, and then maybe the AI integration and ecosystems bucket, and then finally the AI ethics and policy, which is also equally important. So, Manjeet, do you want to kickstart the conversation today with our infrastructure and compute and investments bucket, or any quick thoughts from you, and maybe what's happening in your world?
Yeah, no, totally. I would say that's the most happening bucket right now, and I see this like the compute crisis and scarcity of like everybody needs these GPUs. One funny kind of the picture I saw was like the OpenAI making deal with Nvidia making deal with Oracle, and then kind of the all each other. So I think net what it comes down to is. And one thing I'm like always in like from last few years, hey, there's a cloud and any workload I need to put in, I never kind of thought about it because it became kind of a commodity to a large extent for all the work that we were doing in the SaaS space. But now it's a premium. Anybody like if you see all the companies that are doing well from stock standpoint or what anybody who is claiming or like, hey, this is how much compute we will have 6 months from now, a year month from now, we are talking about gigabyte kind of gigabytes of big data centers. And the underlying assumption there is that these models will continue to be better and better, and then more data, more reinforcement learning, and everything kind of coming together. But right now, I would say I used to think $1 billion investment is a lot. But these days, we talk about 100 billion went here and there, and nobody's blinking the eye. I think it's crazy time. Uh, I don't know. I mean, we and then this whole kind of like, is it a bubble or like? But the way I see Raghu is, I think all of this investment is the next version of economy, right? And that's where a lot of this investment is going when we all will be, surrounded by a lot of this intelligence around in our phone, all the agents, and then. So I think it's just the new economy, and I think in the last podcast we were talking about the example of railroad, and then right, the all the other infrastructure. So this is, to me, the infrastructure that will start to pay more dividend, maybe 4, 5, 10 years kind of down the line. So I'm not surprised. I mean, this 100 billion is a kind of a 100 billion to a non-profit company like OpenAI. It's crazy.
And of course, there is this big announcement about Oracle as well, right? I think there's been all over in the news.
Yeah.
So coming to you, Anjali, I think what is your take on what's happening here in this bucket? Any few notable things that you would like to bring up?
All I know about the GPU is getting smaller and smaller. So even Google is making large investments around infrastructure, and we are continuously evolving. I think there is another evaluation that is also happening lately, that we were never stringent about, I mean, I'm talking about Google, which is being very big company. We were never stringent about resources. Didn't really count about how many GPUs we are using at the level where you have to partially use the resource, or you have to share the GPU, and so on and so forth, based on the team and need, and so on and so forth. So yeah, infrastructure development is definitely taking a large portion of everything, and that's definitely one large area where there will be tons of investment, and a lot of companies are investing in it.
Okay. So I know there is a lot happening in this space, and I believe there is this talk about Hitachi establishing this global Nvidia AI factory to accelerate the industrial AI. And of course, Nvidia is now, as we know, for the last few months, I think we've been hearing a lot of news around Nvidia investing a lot and preparing these $100 billion data centers, GPU investments to power these OpenAI aspects with OpenAI and others. So coming to you, Sej, any thoughts or what are how do you see about this space evolving, or what happened in the month of September?
Yeah, absolutely. So tying to GPUs and infrastructure, right? It's as they say, the people who made the money during the gold rush are the companies who made the shovels, right? So in that context, energy plus compute is the real infrastructure supercluster, right? And I think yesterday or a couple of days back, there was a $65 billion capital spending plan unveiled by Centerpoint. So it was citing rising energy demand from AI data centers as one of the drivers, right? So now, as you see, utility companies now openly plan around AI, and that's the infrastructure level recognition that compute is a critical element here, right? So really, these companies which are planning around providing electricity, be it through nuclear power plant, which is also getting revived, by the way. Small scale nuclear power plant is getting investments right now. Previously, those used to take a long time to approve, but now the government is saying that they're going to improve the turnaround. So really, the signal of companies like this Centerpoint of 65 billion, which is a huge number, that's the shovel in the AI gold rush. And this, in some sense, it's also a very reliable investment for the investors. So for them, it's a low risk investment, right? You can always throttle the energy supply instead of building inventory. So it's a very reliable investment for the real venture capitalists when they're talking about energy towards AI, where you can scale dynamically, you can throttle without building capacity. So it's very controlled in terms of the risk and the reward. So that I see is a new spin-off in terms of growth area. When everybody else is talking about GPU scaling, building models that can consume and deliver the outcomes, whereas the people who will probably really make the money are these energy investors is what we see.
Beautiful. Any notable things that you would like to bring this month, Sesh? If not, we continue to the next bucket.
Yeah, this is something which I read yesterday in terms of the $65 billion investments. Of course, there are also others which are happening in parallel where they're talking about the full stack. Like Microsoft, I think they did a walkthrough of their plant where they're building the compute, the model, as well as GPU all integrated stack as an offering for enterprises. So that also kind of ties into all of these things. And then they're also co-locating the energy power plants right next to their data centers. So all of that is happening as well. But the critical element is that the amount of investment going just on energy generation, and that's I think it's a development that's kind of brewing and probably more to happen.
Beautiful. Any additional thoughts from you, Manjit or Anjali, before we move on to the other bucket, other category?
No, I think the one thought I have specifically around like who will be the winner into this race. I'm very bullish about Google for two reasons. One is when I think about vertically integrating everything, then I think they are in a very good spot with TPUs and see everybody will try to build some form of chips now, right? OpenAI is saying, "Hey, I'll do it with Broadcom," and then so there's all these things are going on. But the truth is, building these high-powered or high-performance, low power kind of low-power consumption chips is hard. It takes years, and Google has been doing it for a long time. So I think that's when it comes down to the scale and cost to serve, I think they will be in a good position. And I'm really looking forward to Gemini 3 because I think that will be kind of from the model standpoint. The search results are still, I would say, not good compared to. I still end up using ChatGPT and others. So it's probably about the model. I think once the model reach, then all the vertical integration and everything will fall into place. So I'm betting my money on, and of course, the Elon Musk and many others people are building this, what I was saying earlier is big data centers. And then so one thing I now think about it is Anthropic, because they are in a very interesting spot. Very good model, loved by millions and millions of developers. But they are not like, this build out data centers and then, right? So I think they're a little bit of course, they have some good partnership with AWS. So AWS backing is there. So I think it'll be interesting to see, right? That between XAI and Meta and Google and then OpenAI, where like in a year or two from now, where will Anthropic land? Right now, they're, I think, in a good spot from the developer API kind of usage, and then they're also no problem in raising the money. So it's kind of I'm seeing what's happening.
True. I think you very well said. I think I just landed in yesterday in India. I think in Hyderabad and like in high-tech city. I was driving around and see there's so much of I met a couple of folks and they've been talking about these huge investments in data centers and all. Of course, things happen a bit slower here compared to maybe China and the other regions, but still there is a lot of interest and a lot of focus. And of course, Google has been doing tremendous job here in India. I think in the Hyderabad Development Center, that's what one of my friends was talking about. Anything from you, Anjali, before we move on to the other bucket?
No, I was just going to talk about that we have made, Google has made huge investments in Hyderabad and Bangalore. In fact, Bangalore is our highest populated, build up of people and the infrastructure. And it's the nicest building that is built in Bangalore. So, yeah, there will be continued investments, and Google is definitely moving a lot faster than it was. A lot of changes are happening internally, in terms of management, how we do things, how we manage things, how we plan, how we execute, how we deliver, how we see the results and impact analysis and all of it. So yes, there will be definite growth. Google investment is a good investment.
All right, so let's now get into the interesting bucket. I think this is one bucket which I love it. I think me and Manjit, when initially when we were putting together this, almost close to 3 quarters back, I believe, this AI innovations and product launches bucket, right, Manjit?
Right,
more
right.
more excited about this bucket because there's a lot happening. It's tough to capture things uh, like in weeks and months time because a lot is happening. What is your take? I think from the point of view from September, I think what's happening here?
Yeah. So there's two dimensions I'm looking at from. One is, of course, agents, because that's the law. I spent a lot of time thinking about it, a lot of competitive analysis, and then so I think we are reaching to a point where these agents can run longer and longer for a given task. And what I mean by that is, let's say if you go 6 months ago, most of the agents like, oh, they will run okay for 2 minutes, and after that they will be like, oh, I can't run, or they will give you garbage kind of. But now that boundary has been pushed a lot. So it's very common in, let's say, coding as a task, where now I can, let's say, I use Lovable a lot. I can give full prompt, go for and make my tea, and then do my thing, and I come back, and it's my kind of the whatever prototype is ready. So I think we are going into this world where it's like, I call it like, the I don't have a dog, but I used to earlier. Is like the lease, right? The how long the lease and this AI lease is getting longer and longer. So how long we can let it loose, like go and do, and then when things are not not right, you pull it back. So and that's where like human in the loop, and then right, and then where you see things are not working well, or because AIs maybe end up going to wrong tool calling, and then how do you? So that's the one lens. In fact, one metric I'm closely looking at these days is how many agents you can manage. Okay, and what I mean by that is, if I look into the work I do, sometime I have like 6 tab open, and I'll throw in, like, I give the lovable example, a cursor example. Ultimately, I'm becoming a bottleneck because my context window cannot go switch on all bat, like what happened, what was the output there, and like, so I think it's the if you use, and if you want, like, hey, whatever the task you are doing, and if you ask the right way, like the why this task, in what nature of task. So my metric is how many agents you can manage. My limit is right now 5, 6, or 7. I met a friend yesterday. He is able to do 15.
Wow.
Young guy, yeah, from Berkeley, very smart. And he showed me, like, I was like, dude, tell me, like, because I'm always up behind, like, what's the new playbook, right? What's kind of the thing, how these small startup companies of 4 people are able to, do everything, like product engineering, development, marketing, and then so there's kind of new playbooks developing. So that's, I would say, one bucket I've been kind of thinking and closely. Of course, these agents work, but then they're not there yet. But given this lease is getting longer and longer, and we have the right evals and reinforcement learning, we'll be, I think we'll get there. So try this out, how many agents you can manage, and then see, maybe, it's a good kind of the number to have. Maybe not just the count, I would say, but the useful work that you can get out from these autonomous, type of automation.
So when he
And
was talking about the agents, was he talking about the agents from different platforms, or or what was his thought, or what
so one
was?
is the coding, right? I would say there's three areas where the agents are working really well. One is, of course, coding is one space. The second is in more of this conversational service agent type, right? You might say like, hey, do this research for me, find out, about this XYZ company, and then create a brief, and then ultimately send me an email, right? So that's another form. And that's where what you will see is one interesting feature OpenAI launched is Pulse, So you
Oh,
can just like, hey, this is my goal this week or whatever top of your mind, personal, professional, whatever, and then it will tell you what's happening in that space, and so that becomes kind of the more proactive. So that's another example of kind of the so two or three I ended up setting now is so one is I was all like I read a lot on Twitter and I'm like there's a lot of garbage and bots on Twitter. I'm like, how can I find the most important 10 tweets? Now I created the task in OpenAI, and I'm pretty happy with the it finds the and I'm providing more the context, and then so that's another example. To me, it's an agent, and what I want to consume very high quality content without spending an hour on Twitter. Now now what I'm taking this OpenAI as an example, but you can do with the other model as well. So right, so that's the way to kind of think about it. It is, and then because see in any role, right, technical program manager, product manager, and then whatever, we don't do just one task, right?
right.
We do a series of tasks. We do in a kind of a workflow. But where these agents are good at right now is mostly in the task.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know how to sequence those tasks, how to ask what to do,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a bit of a learning curve. But I think that it's a pain to learn that, but it's worth it. So I'm spending a lot of time there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Coming over to you, Anjali, I know a lot is happening when we talk about AI innovations and product launches. What are your thoughts about this? I know Google's DeepMind, or they have a lot of new innovations and a lot of things happening.
So I use AI a lot often, and I have also done the similar analysis. I was very surprised by listening to Manjit that how many agentic AI can you use in parallel and you get the right output that you're looking for. So my earlier experience, especially with Gemini, that I whenever I give a prompt,
Mhm.
I will get percent at max. And then eventually, as I learned how to prompt better and how
Mhm.
to give the right prompts, now I can actually rely on it by 80 to 90%. And I think that is a very big achievement for anything like this. So that agentic AI, and I do tons of work with AI on
Mhm.
my day in day out work. So all the tasks are pretty much done by AI. But there is one more cool research that we have done internally in Google. Since we have lots of engineers across the globe,
Mhm.
we launched our internal tool to do the coding,
Mhm.
especially. And in 2025 April, we were able to do approximately um, 20% of the coding using agentic AI. And the deployment, not just coding, but deployment and the bug analysis. If there is build failure, it's gonna create email, send it to you. All those things were working very well. And then now the percentage has reached to 28%.
Wow.
From 20% to 28%, that's a big achievement.
Mhm.
And a lot of developmental tasks have been reduced. But on the hiring side, though, that's
Mhm.
another point of view that what we are now looking for when I hire engineers in our teams, we only look for engineers who are good with AI and
Mhm.
who have actually done some sort of prompt engineering, who can give the right prompts to get the right results. And I think that's a new skill set that needs to be developed uh, from us and the younger generations that is coming up.
Mhm. Mhm. That's a great piece of that's very great to get this perspective, Anjali, about the prompt engineering and the prompt skills. I think we did talk about this a few months back in one of our talks, one of our podcast news episodes. But it is great to know that coming from you as well, that there is a lot happening in that world. So
Yeah,
coming,
prompt is something that is the key to
Mhm.
use AI.
Right.
However, the AI is unable to do sequential tasks yet. So as it's growing, I think I'm hoping within the Gemini 3 or the next generation of AI, whichever is gonna launch, we'll have those things pretty much ready from that perspective too.
So yeah, coming to you, Sesh, I think what are your big thoughts about September, the month of September, what's happening out there in the context of the product launches or AI innovations?
Yeah, I think last month we spoke a little bit about GPT-5 becoming the thinking model, right?
Right.
So one interesting development this week was the Anthropic Claude 4.5 model, which they say is like it's got long horizon capabilities. So essentially, um, that's a good enterprise story in some sense because they demonstrated a multi-hour, I think it was 30-hour autonomous coding runs and complex multi-stage workflows. So it's kind of built towards an enterprise use case that need like kind of a reliable, long-lived agents, right? Which is also to the point what Manjeet was saying, right? Usually agents were like couple of minutes and then they time out, or that's the extent of which they can compute. So really, if models can reliably execute multi-step business processes, which means like higher value workflows, it kind of changes the spend for our enterprises from um, heads to agent, as you say, right? So that kind of really is, is a new wave of real automation, not one-off prompts, right? So that's an interesting development. And then teams can get extended unattended runs in this process. So it'll be interesting how this is getting applied. Um, I see there's a lot of value in real automation and not just the one-off prompts that we are all using. So teams get kind of extended, unattended. And then also if you say if it can run for 30 hours, there are fewer handoffs and faster project completion. So there's a lot of value coming in as and when these kind of models evolve. So I think that's an interesting development. I think in the last week, the Claude 4.5 launch. So I would be interested to see how this is getting applied in real world use cases and how this kind of changes some things, right? Yeah.
Beautiful. I think let's continue further. I think with you, Sesh, about the next bucket. I think which we keep talking about, right? I think there is this again a lot of things happening in the AI integration space, right? I think whether it is with the across the different industries or the partnerships in the evolving landscape of AI, right? Any thoughts? I know there's this huge announcements going on in that space as well across the globe. What are some other thoughts that come to your mind?
Yeah. For me, the most exciting thing, especially me coming from the payments world, this is something bound to happen, was last week Google announced Agent Payments Protocol. They call it AP2. They announced this in partnership with PayPal and MasterCard. Um, so this is a very interesting development because um, in some sense this is like kind of this is a plumbing so that bots can safely buy things for the user. It's always imagined, but kind of laying the rails for it is very critical. And in my mind, as I say, right, there are three things that really drive the economy: the speed of the transactions and the value of the transactions, right? So this really addresses the first thing, like the speed of the transactions. When you're able to have a reliable rail for agents to make purchases in a very interoperable way, safe, as well as scalable way, this actually lays the foundation for a faster growth in the economy. That I feel is very interesting. I haven't had a chance to read more about it, but um, this whole cycle of interoperability, verification across agents uh, is very critical. And also, what is interesting is it's not like a single vendor play because they're trying to bring it as a standard, and and also in some sense, if you see, we were all talking about these models and agents and all those things. there was never a clear monetization story. When they talked about it, they said like, oh, outcome based pricing is the uh, is the is the next wave. But then the monetization is very weak because you never know what is the cost of that inference when you're saying outcome based pricing. So how do you put a price on something which you do not know the cost, right? But with this kind of a development where you're providing payments interoperability with the standard rail, you actually have a monetization model because you can always take in a revenue share. So that I feel is an interesting development. It's bound to happen, but I'm glad that Google kind of took the lead here, bringing the industry players like PayPal and MasterCard together and driving something there.
Right, right. Yeah, from SAP standpoint, I think we also had some kind of um, like a partnership with OpenAI and Microsoft and rolled out this sovereign AI solutions for the Germany's public sector. There's a lot happening in that space, in this integration space and the ecosystem space. Coming to you, Manjeet, what are your thoughts about the categories that we talk about in this space?
Yeah, so if I see where is real value being created through integration, there's two buckets. I think when you think about tool calling, MCP has already become a standard, even though there are like security and whatnot. But hey, when everybody adopts, then that's the basically your ecosystem, and then if you have an AI solution, if you don't have an MCP, I think 3 months from now, people will laugh at you like, what you are even doing. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can be client server in front of data, in front of your, code. It doesn't matter, right? So that's one. So then I think about the DevOps as a bucket, because that's another area. What I'm seeing is after kind of a customer service use case,
Right.
where the agents are becoming pretty helpful. We already talked about coding, so I'll not go there. But the rest of the DevOps lifecycle, right? That includes testing, that includes monitoring, that includes like, just your supervisor agent sitting on top of your logs and then can tell you like what's working well, what's not working well, right? If you're, for example, you're talking about developer productivity, you can look into all your PRs that went in as like, hey, why the PRs are up and down, and then all agent will tell you what's going on. So those are the questions which were very hard to answer in the like before this. You have to do a lot of kind of the hours, and then now you can do them to a great extent, and then figure out where to make adjustments. So I think there's some integrations have become very standard. If you look into any platform, Langsmith or Crew AI and other, calling email, calling calendar, calling one is the kind of productivity suite. Everybody has integration with Google Drive now, right? So for
Right.
example, so now, and then we are moving into the other platform, right? Integration with ERP system, integration with your sort of your HR system of record, Workday or Rippling, and then. So I think that's kind of where we are. It's still tricky. Some of these integrations are not easy,
Right.
for obvious reasons. You don't want to make it easy because otherwise people will suck it out from you. Uh, that's kind of the nature of the competition, right? You want to be nice, but at the same time, right. So yeah, a lot of people like in our world wants to integrate with Slack. It has a lot of those deeper, I would say, data which is not there even Google Docs, not there any. It's just like real how your company function. It's kind of fitting into your the chat system, and then yeah, no, I think that's where data
Yeah.
integration is.
That unstructured form of communication, right? Whether it is Slacks or Teams or these,
Right.
capturing that kind of information and now embedding it into your agentic workflows, and those kind of integrations are becoming more and more bigger and bigger. I believe there's going to be a lot more involved in future. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, one example, let's say I can think of right now is right, we may have done like 10, 15 episodes. If you take all of them, feed into and let's say put into, let's say, even Notebook LM or whatever, or like Easy One, all right. And it's like, hey, how based on what we are talking every month, how things have evolved. 6 months ago, some prediction or some guesses, or we saw how many of them are true. And it's an interesting analysis to see, right? And maybe plot some charts where possible, and then kind of, so all those things were very hard earlier, hard to do earlier. One interesting test I did was this week. So when I read these research paper, they give you charts. Okay, this is how we simulated, and then if you want to build anything on top of that research, it's very hard to simulate that environment.
Mhm.
And I asked Claude, like, hey, here's the paper, here's the table, here's the Git repository. Man, it simulated, like, it created all this demo data and all that, and it was like such an amazing use case, because now you think about the amount of speed it will unlock for researchers,
Mhm.
right? So and now you can continue to think like, oh, what about if these long running tasks earlier we were talking about, and these AI doing research on your behalf and continue to do more and more, and then yeah, so I think there'll be some interesting discoveries.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, yes. Yeah, now coming over to you, Anjali, I think what are your thoughts about this integration space? I know there's a lot happening. Google is in the center of a lot of these things.
Yeah, I mean, in our Google Cloud, we have one major area that's Vertex AI. I'm sure you guys are all aware of that. And we get tons of requests from tons of customers that we want integration, and we want a certain way our application to be operating. And then, this is the outcome that we are looking for. They want to really build the agentic AI with using Vertex AI, because which is the core of the AI. So we integration has been one of the, I would say, most challenging and most interesting area,
Mhm.
because every company would want to integrate. And I have also seen examples like Align Rewards, one of the company that I have been supporting. So they are integrating with multiple OpenAI, Gemini, and Perplexity and more, to get the right level of responses. So the integration is definitely one big area that's going to grow more and more. The way we talked about infrastructure, this is going to be another major area that's going to grow. And the synergies are everywhere. If it's not just that, a big company will not integrate with another big company. Google just made a, so Google always had we spoke about the commerce, right? Google always had a commerce version. So the payment gateway, Google Pay, has always been there for many years. But there were some issues, and on top of it, now Google is also integrating with PayPal. They're partnering with PayPal. So those things show a clear, it's a clear example of integration and synergies, that there will be more and more synergy across different companies, globalization, and the competition will be in a different level. So the level which what we have seen is, I would say, step one. So now we are going to go to step 10 immediately, as soon as those partnerships and integrations happen. So that's how quickly it's going to move.
Right, right. I think you rightfully mentioned about that. I think the competition is now going to leapfrog. I think, of course, like you share a lot of things, and then at the same time, you know what and how you can integrate and then build on top of that. Well, I know we are coming to the in the last bucket now. I think Anjali, this is another not so until the last few months or so, we haven't been giving so much of thoughts about AI ethics and governance and policy, but now a lot is happening in this space too. I think that is one of those aspects. Things are doing a lot more. What are your thoughts, and what did you see in the month of September happening in this space?
So there are quite a few rules that is, spreading across the globe in terms of usage of AI, being mindful of usage and all. In terms of the actions, uh, there are actions in place, but it's not all visible. It's not all yet finalized in terms of, like, how do you really control the thought process. One way you're feeding the information, the other way you want to get the information out, and you want it to become more and more and more smart. Now the AI becomes smarter, then where can you use, where can you not use? So in the healthcare industry, there have been certain areas where, a lot of security, privacy, data analysis, a lot of flag guarding, I would say, is already happening. And matter of fact, Google is heavily involved in the healthcare industry and research, and that's where I think maximum security and privacy is required and mandatory. So we have been taking actions in last few months. We have seen a lot of actions being taken, but they're not all as in standardized actions
Right,
yet.
right.
Right, it's a standard that company follows for themselves, or it's a standard that is kind of given by government that, okay, you can only do this, just the way we have HIPAA compliance, the same way there are other compliances, but it's not standardized yet. But there have been a lot of bits and pieces of those things in place, and company like Google have been a lot more cautious about these things due to a lot of reasons, as we all know.
True, true. Over to you, Sesh. I think this again, what are your thoughts in this space? What happened so far in the month of September?
Yeah, I think from an ethics standpoint, one interesting development I would say is in EU, I think Italy became the first EU country to pass a national AI law. It's, I think, aligned with the EU AI Act as well. The most impactful feature of that is the introduction of criminal penalties for up to even a few years of prison for creating and distributing harmful AI generated contents like deepfakes. This kind of establishes a clear legal perimeter for the technology, right? I think this is much needed because we're in a age where it's really hard to figure out deep fake versus the real thing. So having some kind of a guardrail, becoming more human centric and transparent and safe use of AI is very important. Um, so I think we would see, given that usually in terms of regulation, EU's takes the lead, and then rest of the world usually follows, at least in the sense of these kind of things, like where human rights are involved. So this is a interesting development, much needed. I think we'll see more of it from other countries as well very soon.
Beautiful. Over to you, Manjeet. What are your thoughts about what happened so far in the month of September in the context of AI ethics and policy?
Yeah, yeah. But I think one thing I've been thinking a lot is around like education as a bucket. And if you see what's happening specifically in the higher education,
Right.
it's a big deal. If there was a survey out this week, the perception of higher education, like if it's like, hey, if you go, should you go and get a higher degree or not? The value of that higher education has dropped from 75% to 38%. And I'm not surprised because truth is AI is the best teacher, no matter what. I think it will reach to a point where you want to learn in audio, you want to learn in video, you want to learn in graphics, you want to learn in cartoon. You tell us, will be basically matched to your and all these tools have learning mode now, which can bigger memory, so it can follow in same thread. You can continue to learn about the topic. But I think that's fine. The reason I have a lot of ethics in this was is like, so now what will happen is if I look into, let's say, the top 5 universities in US, okay, MIT, Harvard, and then, right? So, and then I've been looking into their curriculum. It's very hard to change their curriculum, right? So on one side, we are seeing there's a demand, and then that is changing, and then the space is, but then like, but those top ones, I think my prediction is they will continue to do well. But everybody else below that, I think it will be in a very, very tough spot. I think they will have a very tough time. International students are kind of their interest is also dropping. It's like, hey, let me go and do my startup. Why should I spend like 6 years, 7 years, or 10 years in higher educations? And then, so I'm not saying that the value of education is not there. I think if learning is your goal,
Mhm.
you can learn in a very compressed time frame. You can
Right.
be more targeted, you can be in there. And of course, this idea of networks and then, right, social skills, and then that will always be there. So that's why I think but this, I think this whole, for every applications and getting into MIT and all that, you will see, I think, it's a big impact coming, specifically in the higher educations. In 5 years, I don't know, my kid is in seventh grade.
Mhm.
I don't know if he has to go to, the specifically, maybe, he don't need to do masters. Unless you want to do more specific PhD or like in a domain or whatever. Just for getting a job, no, don't need to do that. In fact, if you look into another, I mean, it's a bad PR for like graduates are having harder time in finding a job compared to other ones. I don't know how true that is, but you guys kind of feel free to read and kind of try to look at some of those citations and who did the research. But this thing is, and now you like, okay, what it means to teachers and ethics angle, and then, right, if it's taking your knowledge, my knowledge, and then replacing us, at end of the day, it comes down to that. I think but I think the truth is, we humans want transformations. We need innovation, so nothing will stop that. Nothing
Right.
will happen.
Things are changing quite fast, quite rapidly, I think, and with the innovation and the technologies that is happening. In fact,
Yeah.
I know we are almost at the end of the session. I think we'll open up with our future thoughts. I want to share that. I think interesting that you brought up this about the angle about education and other things. I think next week I have a talk at our Berlin event where I'm going to talk about this human-centered AI. Apart from
Right.
the other topics around AI, this is where uh, yeah, I think there's a lot happening in that space. How you can add this additional human touch,
Mhm.
then make it a bit more that emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. How you can add into that.
Yeah.
So coming to you, Manjeet, any closing? What are you looking forward in the month of Q? I think Q4 is right at the doorstep now. What are you
Yeah.
looking forward? And as always, any fitness tip? What mandatory we come from
Yeah.
you, that comes from you.
Yeah. So I think the October will be full of conferences. We have our own conference coming up, Dreamforce. But I think that really before is like people go on vacations. So usually September, October, if you see in San Francisco, every day there is 5 different meetups and then, right, different conferences. And I'm like, I wish I had more hours
Yeah.
to drop it into some of the good ones, and then, right. So that's one thing, which means people will be sharing more forward-looking demos all across the stack we were talking about, and then yeah, more investments will continue to happen. Yeah, as we are not talking about 1 billion or 2 billion, we're talking about big numbers now. So, and I think it's good in a sense for GDP, and then right. The one thing I've been tracking is the economic value of these automation. And now there's people are like, in terms of the benchmark, what they're saying is that let's not do the benchmark on coding and math and this and right in a puzzle. Can we do the benchmarks on the real world task? And that's where everybody, OpenAI also said like, hey, this is GDP eval. In fact, it's a fantastic paper. Read through it, where they look across all the actual jobs to be done for pretty much most important roles.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward into, because that's where the needle is moving.
Right. Right.
All these investments, all of this is the future of economy. What it comes down to is whether it will help grow the GDP or not. If that promise starts to fall apart, I think all of this will be like we are all building on this, castle on a sand right now. Of course, there's a lot of value, and then right in certain use cases, but ultimately it has to feed into GDP. GDP is growing 2%, which is very low. You need to get it to at least double, triple that to see the real impact. Quickly, I think the tip I have is so it's been a very busy month, and then when I wake up, I like go into reactive mode. So here's two things I've done that really helped me. One is I'm like, hey, what think I do it slowly, and like I drink wine slowly. So like when I will drink my morning water, I don't rush it. I'll sit down, I'll sip by sip, drink 2, 3 glass of water, and super huffle. Okay, right, and then I'm hydrating. I'm not like this thinking, reflecting about my day, and then be grateful, and I'm a little bit of more mindful when I'm eating my food. I try to make sure I chew it properly. Otherwise, a lot of time is like on the call eating, standing eating, boom, boom, right? So try it. If you feel your life is rushed, drink your morning water just like you drink wine slowly. Take 5 minutes to drink one glass. Sit down. Don't stand. Don't kind of rush. And then chew your food. You'll be in a good spot.
Beautiful. Over to you, Sesh. Any closing thoughts and what you're looking forward in the month of September,
Yeah,
October?
it's interesting what Manjeet said, because my grandmother used to always say that we should never drink water standing. She would always say,
Your
sit
knee
down.
will hurt. I don't
Yes.
see. She gave that reason that your knee might pain when you get older if you keep drinking. I don't know how
Oh
to do
no,
that.
apparently it's prescribed in Ayurveda that you shouldn't drink
Right.
water standing. So you should always sit down and drink water. So I know I used to ignore her when I was young, but now I kind of remember and I sit down and drink water, and you are just reinforcing
Yeah.
that, right? In terms of your question, Raghu, yeah, as Manjit was saying, right, this is a month of conferences, so everybody's going to put their best foot forward. We definitely want to see like how this is going to shape the uh, industry, continuing competition among frontier models, um, with and then of course as part of that conferences they'll also announce new partnerships. So I guess this is going to be like a snowball effect very soon, and with new things coming up with like we just talked about Anthropic Claude 4.5, complex workflows getting solved, enterprise adoption. I think it's going to be an interesting month to watch. I guess we'll have a lot of things to talk about by the end of this month with Salesforce conference coming up, Oracle Open World coming up. I'm sure
Right.
there are many more as well. So it'll be interesting this month.
Beautiful, beautiful. Over to you, Anjali. Any closing thoughts about what you are looking forward in the month of October? And also, I know you're also big time into yoga and other things. Any tips or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I exactly follow that morning 5 minutes for myself to drink warm water with lemon and honey and a little bit of turmeric. So that helps so much with a lot of things. It's not just, I mean, that's a morning routine one should really follow.
Right.
So plus one to that, and also, morning yoga or meditation helps tremendously to improve a lot of things in life. So if you guys are into that, I would recommend do it. I have seen a lot of changes in my own life, and continue to see that. So that's something to inculcate in your routine, in your habits, and more. And then on to, next month, it's a big month, October. A lot of things are happening. We have a lot of planning going on across Google. Lots of launches happening. Lots of devices are going to be out in the month of October. So I'm looking forward to it. There will be a lot of revenue generation that
Right.
I'll be looking at. So, we'll share definitely a lot of those areas with you guys when we meet again. But yeah, a lot to come in October.
Awesome. Have a wonderful month of October and looking forward. All right, welcome back to our part two of our September AI news roundup. As we have, as I've a few hours back, as I have mentioned that I had this conversation with our folks from Bay Area, and one of them was in Seattle, and I am interviewing from India, traveling, and now Lucas is in Europe, in Germany. So it's becoming truly global the way we are conducting this. And of course, we are also touching the global AI news for the month of September. Welcome on board, Lucas.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, AI is global. The phenomenon doesn't have borders, and neither does your audience. So I'm happy to be part, and I hope to reach people all over the world with it.
Awesome. So how is your world? How are things shaping up, Lucas? I know September has been a busy month. As always, we want to go into these 4 buckets, starting with the investments and infrastructure bucket, which is pretty, there's been a lot of investments, a lot of news over there. And then, of course, the product launches and AI innovation, which is getting even interesting. And of course, the other 2 buckets, the integration space and also the ethics space. I know there's a lot of information out there. Where do you want to start with, Lucas?
Well, I'm happy to tackle infrastructure and investment. And just so we talk about it for 1 minute, the reason why I'm calling in from Germany right now is because we are investing as an organization in the enablement of our entire organization for AI native code development, right? Vibe coding, assistants, CLI tools, all that stuff. So we're not only talking about the news, we're also directly and like hands-on engaged with the world of AI, which is really cool. But yeah, let's tackle infrastructure and investment first, simply because I feel like those numbers are still hard to reconcile. I think in the last couple of months, we talked about like how on a daily average, like the capital investment for data centers is more than $1 billion per day. And this month, I heard another like number that just, it's so hard to fathom those numbers and to make sense of them. One number was that now there will be this year more investment in data centers than in office spaces. So truly, the skyline is changing. It's the investments are going to the data centers, not the offices. And in terms of data centers, the by far biggest investment that was announced, well, actually, it's like for a couple of months, we have heard around Stargate, right? OpenAI's flagship project in collaboration with SoftBank, Oracle. I think there's a couple of others, like Nvidia's, like everybody gets to play part in Stargate. For the listeners out there, so Stargate is a project where essentially OpenAI says, we want to build out the biggest data center like the world has ever seen. Not just one, it's like multiple. Although what has become really important, it's a technical topic on the side, but I just want to briefly mention it, is co-location. So to connect multiple data centers that are might not in the same location, just like a couple of dozen or 100 kilometers away, and put special fiber in the ground. So essentially they can act as one giant data center. Long story short, Stargate is projected to be around 500 billions in terms of like investment capital that are needed. But these days, because numbers are so weird, people are even talking more about like the energy consumption, right? So Stargate will be at 10 gigawatt, right?
Wow.
So there's kilo, mega, giga, right? And right now, if you have like 1 megawatt, that is already like a substantial footprint, right? And now we're talking about 10 gigawatts. Like it's pretty much insane to think about those numbers. It was also insane, and then I will wrap it up, is if you think about it, for the next couple of years, investing 500 billion, OpenAI is the fastest growing technology consumer good we have seen like pretty much ever, right? Remember, like they had like 4 days to 1 million customers or something like that. No other app ever had that kind of numbers. And also like the revenue, like this year is what, like 12 billion or whatever, it doesn't matter. Tomato, 10, 15 billion, which is like, there has never been a company in history that made like 10, 15 billion essentially in like the second or third year of its existence. And still, like if you think 10, 15 billion and now investing 500 billion. That's not audacious. That's crazy, right? So the news were about like how could this deal make sense and how to think about it, and what are the mechanics of the companies coming together. For me, as an outsider, I'm like, private investments are now at the scale of like national scale infrastructure. It's not nation states building data centers. It's like private companies building like the biggest infrastructure projects we ever tackled. And I think there will be a real power shift, and it will be interesting to see, right?
Right.
So it's still in the making.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it will take a couple of, I don't know, like maybe months before we truly wrap our heads around how big this is and also how different, right? All of a sudden, infrastructure is not a state enterprise, it's private companies. And well, we will talk more about it. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
True. I think, and there are a lot of news around Oracle, I think, investing big time here, right? Oracle and SoftBank, the announcement that they have made about these new US data center sites. And also, of course, there are a lot of other things going on, right? I think about I think once the Oracle stock jumped like a huge numbers, I think with the projections, I think it was mind-boggling to see when the projections are way ahead into the future, but it tells a story, right? How all this, the AI space is how it is evolving, the infrastructure space is evolving, like you mentioned. Any closing thoughts on that before we get into the other bucket about the product launches and innovation?
Yeah, I would say maybe even if you're not into infrastructure, even if like all that we just said sounds like crazy numbers, rather sooner than later, this will become real. And think of it as whether it's rails, like electricity, or all the infrastructure amenities we have today. AI and intelligence could be one of those. And we're trying to figure out how we build all of that and who should own it and how it should be run. So it will affect us in a couple of years. And the people who are currently working on it, they expect like exponential growth. Whereas for us humans, linear growth is what we fall back into in like making sense of it. So it's a wild ride, and it's even if you're not into capex and infrastructure, I think we will see like what the next 50 years will look like building out at the moment. So I find it very interesting, and I'm still looking at that space, and we'll check out like what's happening there. But maybe now, because like all these data centers and stuff, they're abstract. Let's talk about something that's like in your face, real, and like product features that people can try out. You cannot really like try out at the data center and go there, but there is new functionality that is coming online. And for me personally, the one that I had my eyes on that I thought was especially interesting is ChatGPT Pulse.
Okay.
So it's a new functionality essentially where OpenAI, through its premier product, ChatGPT, if you have it installed mobile, will, right? So for everybody out there, what am I talking about? If you know anything about like how currently AI apps work, essentially they give you an interface and you can prompt AI and it gives you an answer. So it's very reactive. Like you have to prompt it and it will give you an answer. Now we see that they are investing into functionality that's proactive. So users will get like some sort of an overview and summaries of their main topic. So maybe you prompted AI about how to take care of a sick pet, right? You know, maybe the family's dog ate something wrong, right? I'm not throwing any shade here on any type of breed or dog, but that happens a lot, right?
Right.
And you're worried and you want to know like whether you should go to the vet, what you should do, and so forth. And then the day after, right, ChatGPT will come to you and give you a recommendation. Hey, follow up on this. Have you checked that, right? So it creates a feedback loop that really holds you in. And I think it's really, really noteworthy for a couple of reasons. The most important one is that I think OpenAI is finally embracing what they stumbled into. I think they were, in the beginning, they were trying to make technology and trying to pursue AGI. And I'm sure they still are to some extent doing that. But ultimately, what they chanced into is being a consumer product company. And I don't think that was in the beginning their plan, right? And building a great consumer product company is one of the hardest things you can do, right? There's Apple, there is a couple of other companies out there, like whether it's Google, but they're really rare, right? It's very, very hard to pull it off. And now I feel like OpenAI is finally embracing, like, hey, we have like this incredible reach. We have like hundreds of millions of daily active users. We need to double down on that. And so they're making a grab for the real estate market of your notifications, your attention. They're going after it. They're not just waiting for you to prompt AI because you want to know something. They want to be hooked into your life. And they are also more deeply connecting to how you want to use the app. They will remember more. They will build context and memories about what you do. And ultimately, that is like a consumer product play. And so they're showing their cards. And whether you like it or not, like I think it's fascinating to see how the market now differentiates. Anthropic, for instance, has a very strong footprint in the corporate world, and with their coding tools, they really want to double down. OpenAI, for a long time, wanted to do everything. Now they're going full steam ahead with a consumer product, which I think, strategically speaking, even if they didn't plan out to be a consumer product company, they lucked into it. And now that they have already 1 billion eyeballs on their product, they might as well get good at it.
Yes. I think that's what I heard a lot about this ChatGPT Pulse. I believe I will have to start looking into it a bit more. I think even in the morning, a few hours back, I think we were discussing, we did talk about this, and when Manjeet and Sesh were bringing up some of these conversations too. And of course, we also had today somebody from Google as a guest, Anjali. I think she was also bringing in how Google was tackling, I think, the new enhancements and the new things, new innovations going on with Gemini 3.5 and other things. So a lot happening out there. And today, not today, I think a couple of days back, I came to India, right? I think and I've met a few friends here, I was talking about a few things. Of course, I was following about launch about one of these apps. I didn't take it much serious, called Aratai. It's based out of, I don't know if you've heard about this company called Zoho, which was more of a CRM-based firm. They got into messaging apps and other things. And now they released a competitor to WhatsApp kind of a thing. And it is taking in a big way, just like how Signal took. And we will have to see how whether it will sustain that momentum. It is a firm based out of Chennai, south of India. So I have already registered that. I'm trying it out. I think yesterday I downloaded that app. So in this space of innovations and product launches, man, there's a lot happening. I think it's you take a break a couple of weeks, and then you're already lagging behind. That's what I feel sometimes. Yeah.
It's also shifting in subtle ways.
Yeah.
Like so far, innovation was very focused on what the tools can do and how they improve. And that feels like always the beginning of a cycle, right? It's like how fast, how far, like how good is something. And now I think we will see more of like habit formation, the retention. Like how can the apps pull you in? So less competition on tool by tool, functionality by functionality comparison, and more like meeting the customers where they are and trying to create not necessarily I mean, everybody wants to create better products, but really going after like being deeper entwined and deeper connected to how you want to use the technology. And that for me is especially interesting because I believe and assume that this entire like how good AI is just like a side quest. The real money, the real prize is how it will create like deeply connected like spaces between people and AI, like almost like symbiotically, that your life is like always connected to an AI, just like everybody is using their phone, right? And the phone within, if you want, like 20, 30 years became like ubiquitous and everybody had a phone. And I think now we're seeing the first steps of making AI as ubiquitous in our lives as mobile phones are today. So yeah, that's not news for 1 month, but it's definitely the opening shot of a longer battle for the attention of the people.
Right, right. And now getting into the other interesting space or the interesting bucket category, the AI integration space and the AI ecosystem, right? I think there is the ecosystem and the partnerships and other things. I know there is a lot happening out there, and I believe you wanted to talk about a few things there.
Sure. I mean, I picked one tidbit from the news that I thought would be worth pointing out. I'm currently in Germany, and just a couple of days, OpenAI announced a sovereign cloud AI for Germany. So essentially, what that means is for the people who are listening, currently all of AI is run by private companies, their data centers, which are essentially under the legal framework of those companies, right? So an American company essentially extends like contracts and the SLAs, and we're buying into their services. Whenever you click, you sign up, you agree the terms and services of the company. Now we see that in Europe, the first forays into sovereignty cloud, meaning companies and also states or agencies want to use AI in a way where they have sovereignty over it, meaning they control it, they know what's happening. Nobody else can infringe on their data. There is no back channel to other like companies. It's really fully contained and owned. It's like AI is such an important functionality that it should not be like always on and connected to other entities that are not known. And so they set up this framework where D-less Cloud, like a subsidiary of actually SAP, together with Microsoft and other vendors, created a space where OpenAI can deploy their model, and then any kind of state agency or big corporations can use this AI without fearing that the terms and services are changing and the data is going somewhere else or is being used in ways that are not fully spelled out upfront, right? So to me, that's very consequential. That makes perfect sense because intelligence is not just something for the corporate world, right? We do want our agencies, whether it's an agency for work, for health, or whatever. Essentially, you want everybody to have access to the most intelligent and best technology. Now, the question is, how can we make that so this is a trusted, regulated space that is secure because it's, to a certain extent, it's also power projection. I think in the past, for me, just to like wrapping it up from my perspective, it was a lot about in the past about sovereignty, meaning where do the bits and bytes live? Is the data in Europe? Is it in India? Is it like, or is it moved to the US? And I think, well, that's a good start, but ultimately, and I'm not trying to be cynical, but for me as like a more technical person, I don't care as much where the data resides. I care more about who gets to say what the models say and how they behave, right? Are the models willing to talk about Taiwan, Tiananmen Square, or
Mhm.
Tibet, right? And I'm singling now out China because they're always a very easy example with their 3 Ts of things that just can't be mentioned, right?
True, true.
And I think it would be very naive and brave to think that China is alone in that, right? We might have more open public discourse, but that doesn't mean that it will stay forever that way. And making sure that we are on top of our own fate, and we have the ability to decide what can and can't be done with the technology. That to me is sovereignty, not just where the bits live. So let's see if that's like the end state, or if as the technology progresses, we'll see a bigger footprint and more involved sovereignty. It's a good step, and I would believe that a lot of other countries will now take that and they will follow, because it's just too much connected to what the countries and the nation states and the governments need to do.
True.
They can't sit that one out.
True. I think very well said, Lucas. I think I definitely echo on this thought, right? I think every country, every geography, they have their own boundaries, their own restrictions, or their own limits. And I'm pretty sure this is, at least Europe is leading on the sovereign cloud front, and believe we see that a lot more happening in the months and weeks to come. Well, coming into the final bucket, I believe almost like we always kind of keep it on the bottommost, but I think it's getting, I would say, more and more important when we talk about ethics, AI ethics, and policy. What are your thoughts about what September saw, and how things are going to evolve from here?
I think that's a very smart observation of yours, because as technology is less about just what functionality, but it gets deeper intertwined and in our lives, like we will see more about ethics and policy, and there will be also more friction, right? As we learn to use the technology. So one thing that why I perked up and I was like, oh, that's interesting, because it will be, I think, if this goes through, really consequential for in the future. There is apparently a settlement between Anthropic, so one of the most important LLM providers, right? The Claude model series, and plaintiffs on the other side about fair use of books, right? So essentially, Anthropic got sued by the courts because of their use of books for training purposes. And essentially, as I understand it, and I haven't read of the preliminary settlement, but they will pay roughly, I think, a couple of $3,000 per book, with more than 500,000 books on the list, essentially stating, hey, we use those books for training, and we'll pay a fine to whoever holds the rights of the authors and the publishers of the books. But the important part is, and I think there's a big misconception what most people don't understand, is training on books is perfectly okay. And the judge even said, reading essentially a book and memorizing and learning from the book, you cannot bar a technology or other people from reading and learning your book. If I take a book and learn it by heart, it's my prerogative, right?
True.
The issue was not that books were used for training AI, which I think most people think was the issue. What was the issue was that Anthropic didn't buy the books up front. They just used pirated copies. That was the issue. So it is, if you think about it, people talk fair use. Hey, it's not fair if you use our books to train. That is totally fair use. I think people should check out what fair use really means, meaning you are allowed to learn, to share all of that. You don't get to not have competition. I think a lot of authors would wish that there is this clamping down, and AI shouldn't be allowed to write books. Fair use doesn't mean you get like your own little like island and nobody is allowed to compete with you. It just means there are certain rules in which ways your works can be used. And they can totally be used to learn, to read, and all of that, but it cannot be through pirated and illegally attained copies. And that's what's interesting. And now let's see how that all plays out.
True.
But once I think they not only like come to an agreement, but actually settle, I think every other frontier lab, meaning every other company that trains models, will just carbon copy like all of the stuff that they put in writing. And then we will have like one of the stepping stones, like how this industry needs to behave and work. And we'll get security and we'll have more confidence about how to ramp up and work with this technology. So I liked it a lot because it shows that we're not sacrificing the future for keeping our current perspective on the laws. And I know like we have been talking for longer than usual, but like the one example that I always feel compelled to talk about as an example, I live in the US, and in the US, if you own land, you own essentially the property rights to the bottom of the earth and all the way up to the heavens, right? It's like if you have a plot of land, exactly, it's yours, right?
Yeah.
And when aviation came up, so another technological breakthrough, there was a case where they said like, hey, if an airplane, even at 10 kilometers above, like altitude above ground, right, is flying over my property, I should get money because essentially they're infringing on my property rights, right? And for a little while, there was like a question about should every aviation company then pay out like for every flight, all the like the little parcels. It's just no matter how big they are, and tell people, well, we flew over your place and here's your money. And at some point they said it makes sense that people own their land, but the reality of the technology is changing the reality of the law, and we kind of need to have like a common sense solution. And so we allow and like the airlines to fly over land and not having to pay because really you're not like the property owners are not suffering from it, right?
Right.
To me, it feels like that we have strong IP and rights, and that's wonderful, right? At the same time, training up AI, getting good at it, we also need to think about what makes sense and what is the common sense solution so that we can harness this wonderful technology. Sorry, I took a bit longer. It's a bit complicated. But I think it's fascinating, and it's not yet over, right? We'll see more and more of that because also I don't want to feel like people believe that Lucas is only like totally in favor of it. There is a lot of gray zone, and we need to now figure out how to navigate that gray zone like with grace.
True. I think it's a wonderful metaphor that you brought it up. I always like your examples that you bring it up, because when we compare what has happened and what is going to happen, I know we are at the top of the hour. Any closing thoughts, or what are you looking forward in October? I know there's a lot going to happen.
Normally, I always pick something that has happened or like we're talking about. But frankly, we're trying to set up like AI native coding here. We're working on like, how do we want to change work? And I think that's what I'm currently most excited about, because it really like hit home right now. We're not just trying to buy a new technology, procuring it, right? Like instead of this software package, we're now using that one. We're talking about in what ways, and that's a meaningful and important conversation. Are we changing the way we work? Because we need to change how work works in order for it to really create like this impact. And that's fascinating. It's not a technology conversation. It's about people meeting, deciding to have more impact. And there's a lot of challenges, fluidity, and excitement about hey, what does it mean to actually now have different interfaces, let people do more, like more responsibility, and also what happens if all of a sudden some of the work, maybe there's some agentic workflows, right? Who's responsible for that? How will we do that? And the next couple of months and years will be a wild ride in most positive and crazy way.
Sure, sure. Looking forward, Lucas, as always, great talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me, and till the next time.
And that wraps up our September 2025 AI News Special, brought to you by the XTraws across India, Seattle, the Bay Area, and Berlin. From mega investments and product breakthroughs to industry adoption and global policy red lines, this month shows just how fast and far AI is moving. A huge thank you to my fellow XTraws, Sesh, Manjeet, Anjali, and Lucas, for sharing their perspectives across time zones and continents. And to all of you listening, thank you for being part of the XTraw AI community. Stay tuned for next month's Global Roundup, when the XTraws will be back with more trends, more voices, and more perspectives. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and as always, happy predicting the future with AI technologies, and stay XTraw.